Today we are going to be going over our 32-piece master socket extractor set that we just released. We're going to be showing you a few different use cases. First is going to be removing an exhaust manifold stud, and then we're going to go over a rusted nut on a piece of a lawnmower. This is a straight cut non-tapered extractor design that is built to be hammered on and is impact rated. Let's dive into this new set. So first we're going to be starting out with a rusted exhaust manifold stud with our 9mm socket extractor, and we are hammering it on. You want to make sure you get it fully seated as deep as you can. It is also dual drive, so you can put a 3/8 breaker bar and a socket over the back of it on this 1/4 inch size, and it is bi-directional, so we are working this back and forth to break this C stud free, and it takes a lot of working it back and forth as I did not want to snap the stud. And after I worked it back and forth enough, it finally broke all that rust and corrosion out of there, and I was able to extract this stud out of here. The next step is to grab the foreign object removal rod for the 1/4 inch socket extractor, grab a socket and some pliers and tighten it down, and it will push that stud right out of the extractor, preventing damage from happening and saving you time from having to put it in a vise or finding some way to get that stud out of the extractor. The 32-piece master socket extractor set goes from 4mm to 19mm on the metric side, and from 3/16 to 3/4 on the SAE. It also comes with all 3 foreign object removal rods. Next subject we are going to be covering is how to remove a rusted and rounded out nut. We're going to be starting out with our 12mm socket extractor, as it's hard to know what size this nut is due to how rounded it was. So once we hammered the 12mm on, I'm going to grab a 3/8 ratchet and a socket, but this one was a bit too long, so now we're going to remove the socket. Now we're going to be going down to a smaller ratchet and just using the 3/8 drive feature of the socket extractor and try to loosen it up. But this socket extractor is not getting any engagement as it is too large for this rounded out nut. Now we're going to try the 11mm, which is too small. The next step is to grab the SAE sizes, and we start out with the 7/16, which seems to be the perfect size. We need to make sure to hammer this on and get it fully seated on there. This metal is giving us a soft return, so we're not getting a full return of the hammer on here since it is pretty thin. But once we hammer it on enough, we are getting it fully seated down there. I'm first going to start out with a 3/8 ratchet and see if this has enough torque to break loose this rusted and seized nut. But when I did it, it just seemed like it was too tight and maybe an impact will be a better option. So I made sure I got it fully seated down, grabbed an impact gun, and I'm going to work this back and forth with the bi-directional control. So I'm first going to tighten, then I'm going to loosen, break this rounded out and rusted nut free, and the impact gun is definitely helping. Once I worked it back and forth enough, and I thought I could loosen up this nut without breaking the bolt, I hammered away with the impact gun and was able to get this nut out of here. Now to remove the nut from the extractor itself, you're going to have to thread that bolt back into the nut, as it's just going to be a straight hole and the foreign object removal rod would go through it. But when you lightly tighten down the bolt to that nut, then you can tighten down the foreign object removal rod and it'll push it right out of there. The straight cut non-taper design gives top to bottom engagement on the fasteners that you're removing.